Greetings, Dr. Joseph Martin here. Sacred Economics, the reunion of soul and gift giving in business. I'd like to give you an anthropological historical background on the previous ancient ones, our ancestors, and how they dealt with the whole issue of exchange and service and products. Well, for instance, we know from Marcel Sahlins, the great American anthropologist, in his book Stone Age Economics, that in ancient times, band societies used to exchange goods through the natural world. However, I want to go a little deeper with this. We know that all our ancestors, and this is going back in indigenous terms, just maybe 100 years even, but back maybe 5,000 years ago, all societies on earth, bands and chiefdoms and tribes, were based on the inner awareness and knowledge of nature being full of spirit. That spirit was everything and all things in nature, including waters and rivers and lakes and trees and forests and plants and food, were made of spirit, and they themselves saw themselves as one. They were an embodied soul. They were a soul with flesh and bones. And all the ancient creation mythologies of all our indigenous peoples and all the knowledge of these indigenous ancestors of ours was based on the sacredness of all life. I'd like to suggest that as we go through this short video, which is only an introduction, that we've lost the sacredness and we've come to a profane world where nothing is of value and nothing is humane and nothing is kind. We'll get to how we got there. Well, we also know from another great French anthropologist, Marcel Mauss, M-A-U-S-S, and his book now translated into English, which I studied as an anthropologist, called The Gift, the Forms and Reasons for Exchange Among Our Ancient Ones. And in this, he also talks about the sacredness of nature and of all life and all our ancient bands and tribes and ancient ones, acknowledging the fact that spirit imbues everything with sacredness and that one can be grateful for the capacity to give a gift to another person. And we know that all bands were based on one simple process or law, if you like. It's a social law, and that's the law of reciprocity. We know from all the anthropological research that all economic gift giving was based on the notion of reciprocity. It's basically Jesus' law of the golden rule. What you do unto others, others will do unto you. Only this is seen in economic anthropological terms as the basis for the ancient and pre-modern, pre-industrial notion of exchange as gift and gratitude and the laws of humane exchange. And then we have also in anthropological terms, as we move to chiefdoms, which had a little bit more of a hierarchy, we in anthropology discuss the economics of redistribution. This is the case among the Trobriand Islanders or any of the other Asian island indigenous groups or African tribes, particularly South American chiefdoms and tribes, where redistribution was given from the royalty at the top, the god, the chief, if you like, and all the excess food, in some cases yams or corn or whatever it might have been, and it also could have been clothing and so on, could have been redistributed from the top down to those people who were in need, such as the elders, the young, the unmarried, the women, the widowers, the widows, and so on, the sick, the maimed. We here in Canada have an example of this still today among the Kwakwaka'wakw, and they have still the potlatch situation where they redistribute all of the goods and coppers, as we call them, but it can be blankets and food and many, many things today. I myself have a friend who is a chief who still does this potlatch among the Kwakwaka'wakw. And so this notion was pre-industrial, though, and it got lost in the profanity of the industrial nation, in the Cartesian philosophy of I think, therefore I am. Not I am a soul, therefore I am, but I think, therefore I am, with the split between the soul and the heart and the body, and the ego and the mind. That dualistic separation has caused the profanity within humanity, and that means that humans no longer think of themselves as being a soul, they no longer live as a soul, they no longer correspond and interrelate as souls, they simply relate as thought beings or conceptually um, denuded of soul and spirit, and therefore they're capable of creating all sorts of heinous crimes, murder, war, graft, corruption, stealing of food and land, and it's the 500 years of capitalism that has caused this, and we know the history very well of the industrial capitalistic age here on the planet. Now, I won't go into all those details now, although it's a very admirable study, and we will go into it in another video. There have been other cultures in our time, for instance, the great anthropologist that I trained with at the University of Toronto, Dr. Richard Lee, and his Kung San tribes that he did many books on, showed that even in Namibia today, well, at least up until about 1970, Kung San people were able to use this reciprocity and gift giving in a very humane way. Unfortunately, as Dr. Wade Davis has pointed out, these indigenous tribes are being slaughtered, literally, physically, murdered, and the resources stolen from their lands stolen, and they themselves have been put into prison if they try to interrupt the system or just died of sorrow. This has led to the hegemony of the present political economic system of money being all and everything, money devoid of any kind of soul. And of course, we're all feeling the suffering of this, our credit debt and indebtedness to some system that's simply an illusion. There's no reality to money. It has no foundation. It's no longer tied to the gold standard since 1972 in America and the world. And it's just an illusion that we all suffer from, because those people who understand the illusion and use the illusion for power over other people, and that would be the 1% of the 1%, they are the ones who are supposedly gaining happiness from it. But as the saying goes, money will never make you happy. It's not the only reason Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple. He was trying to show the difference between the sacredness of a personal and collective connection to the divine, however you deem it to be, whatever cultural, religion, and tradition you have or are. But he tried to show that you can't serve God and mammon, or money, because you'll either deem one more important than the other and lose the other, which is seemingly what we've done in our industrial age. We have thrown the divinity and the sacredness of all life out, so we feel free to rape the earth and take all the resources out of it and make it like a virus-filled acne on the planet that's causing great suffering for not only Mother Earth, but for every being, including the humans, as well as the animals, plants, and trees. Well, you're probably listening to this because you may agree with this, but I'm hoping many people who have yet to see that we're into the knowledge age now, where knowledge will set us free, and we're all suffering, whether it's the 1% or the 99%. So this is something about occupying knowledge and truth. I want to read you a little something from a DVD that I put out actually 20 years ago. This is in its new Digiform Eco Pack that I put out in 2008, called Making Money Through Soul Gold Alchemy. It's a visualization meditation with created music that I put together with a friend. Just want to read you a few words from here. The materialistic reading of money suggests that simply being gold instead of becoming gold, or having gold instead of becoming gold, will bring one happiness. Thankfully, we know this is not true. Seeking peace and compassion in service to the flow of life energy for all beings will be our own inner higher self, and it will bring us the achievement of happiness. Money is simply the visible sign of a universal force. We need to struggle with our own sense of soul and thereby reclaim the gold and prosperity within us. We have a wealth of gold within us, and that is our soul, as Joseph Campbell has said. The selfish use of money and power has been ingrained in our Western culture for many centuries now. We need to reclaim the personal right to see money as a soul-making process and not let it catch us and carry us away in the clutches of external material power, control, and domination. This is available on our website. You may want to take a further look at it at some point. Now, it's very clear that the civilization is in its demolition stage. There's nothing that can or will save it, no matter how hard some people try. There are cycles to history and civilizations and societies, and obviously this is the denouement of one, and we've learned many things through all the dastardly things we've done to ourselves as individuals and our culture and all our relations and the world and its resources. So therefore, out of this degrading situation, we need to create a return to or reunion of soul, gift-giving, and business. It will be not, I think, therefore I am, or I want, therefore I am. It'll be, I give to others, therefore I am. This is the new ontology philosophy of what will take us into the new civilization. And every one of us will have to re-ensoul ourselves in our hearts and reconnect to spirit and all our relations in order to understand that the only way you are happy, and I know many of you already experienced this, is when you give to somebody else. That's going to make you happy. So the basis of the new sacred economy locally is going to be, and also globally, is going to be based on gift giving from an open heart, from a kindness, from a compassion, from a sharing attitude rather than a selfish attitude. Because when we share all that we are and all that we have and all that we do and co-create something locally and globally, and of course the online side, there's a good side to that, we can use that as well, to make one global family of sharing. There'll be a time when you'll be able to cross national borders and people will be excited and happy to welcome us rather than what we experience today with all these homeland securities. This is a sacred revolution for evolution of humanity. Either we get this and we embody it and we do it, or we don't, and we won't survive. Our children and our grandchildren realize and need to realize that something greater has to be done. And this is going to be the whole notion of re-ensouling our psyches and our bodies and our minds to the notion that we're all one, and we can be grateful for the gift giving that we give to others and be happily receiving in love and friendship worldwide the gift giving of others to ourselves. It's making everything sacred again. It's turning the profane back into the revolution of the serving, sharing sacredness of all life. It's basing ourselves not on the materialistic world, but we'll be basing ourselves on the non-materialistic world of spirit and soul and love. As it is in the cosmos, we here again on earth will relearn the sacredness as our ancestors knew of a different way of living. It'll be re-indigenizing our consciousness. It will be re-sacralizing or making sacred our own consciousness and our daily attitudes and activities with other people. We realize that none of us will get through it unless we're all giving gifts of one form or another to one another. Well, that's it for now. I wish you well in this new revolutionary consciousness process of occupying gift giving. And the only way you can do that is when we feel our self-worth is now coming back to us. The only reason why people are selfish and hoard money or want control or power domination over others, whether it's through money or resources, whatever, is that they have no self-worth. And that includes all of us. When you recapture your patterning for developing self-worth, which is part of our I Am Self-Worth online self-coaching, self-training program, and take responsibility for determining that you can be a better person and a good person through not having to be selfish, but instead develop self-worth. And then that alone, that the joy that comes from being that person that you know you can be, will allow you to be free and happy to be gift giving. So again, the key to the living in the new economy, which is what we've here in Victoria, Canada, we've re-experienced personally and communally about how to do this through local currencies and all sorts of other things that we can embody and embed in our local currencies and economies, and also therefore we will be able to experience this as we spread it out around the world. This is definitely the only way for the future, and we'll see within 10, 20 years how we've developed this. I know there are many of you all over the world looking at this, and it is a global consciousness that is emerging, and it is the way forward for developing a new way of communality and regaining the commons, both in terms of our natural resources and our water and our forests and our food making, and knowing all the gifts and people that are around us and supporting us, and admiring them for all the skills that they can do in woodworking or carpentry or making clothes or whatever it is we do, supporting them that way to develop all their skills. But the core and the essence is in the self-worth that you feel, and we all are feeling the need for that, aren't we now? All love to you all health and strength and prosperity as we turn the old pattern of money selfishness into soul gold alchemy and becoming the love and the light and the gifting that we are. All love to you, Dr. Joseph Martin.